Satoru Gojo has proven he's the strongest sorcerer in history. Having etched his name into the battlefield of Shinjuku, the battle of the strongest has concluded. And with Gojo's clear win over Sukuna, he's proven that from the Heian era all the way to present day, he's the strongest sorcerer that ever lived. And all of it picks up with his battle against Agito, Sukuna, and Mahoraga. After Sukuna summoned two of the strongest 10 Shadow Shikigami, Gojo was completely outnumbered. With a single arm left, Gojo sends his maximum output blue crashing into Agito, sending the Shikigami flying. Gojo's blue at maximum output is described as a huge field of attraction that drags everything around it into its center, causing the Shikigami's body to crash into itself and implode despite its healing ability. Additionally, Gojo has used Black Flash 2 times so far in this fight, the first against Sukuna and the second against Agito. The Black Flash is noted as putting its user at 120% of their potential, meaning that Gojo is now in the zone described by Nanami while fighting Sukuna and Mahoraga. Gojo's surge of power and him blowing up Agito is making Sukuna sweat, since for the first time in 1,000 years, the King of Curses Ryumen Sukuna is experiencing the height of tension. This means that Sukuna's feeling towards Gojo has gone from respect to fear, showing that Gojo is above any opponent that Sukuna has ever faced, even in the Heian era. While Sukuna is in his nervous state, Gojo goes after Mahoraga, landing a Black Flash and sending him flying behind Sukuna. The Black Flash hits with the power of a normal strike to the power of 2.5, meaning that Mahoraga has taken one of the strongest punches in the entire series and is still standing. With Mahoraga knocked back, Sukuna rushes to attack Gojo, and Gojo is so far ahead that he can catch Sukuna's punches before they land, and throw him into Mahoraga before either of them recover. This is the same kind of treatment that Gojo gave Sukuna all the way back in Chapter 2, when they fought for the first time, showing that Gojo's hand-to-hand combat ability is still above Sukuna's, even when they've both brought out their full strength. Looking to take down Sukuna, Gojo goes straight for another Black Flash, with Mahoraga shielding Sukuna and taking the attack for him. One punch mixed with blue was enough to make Yuta Kotsu throw up, let alone 2 Black Flashes from the strongest sorcerer alive that Mahoraga has survived up until this point. This shows why Mahoraga is the strongest Shikigami in the series, especially when it's being powered up by Sukuna's cursed energy. After sending Mahoraga flying through a building, Gojo has done something that many may have missed. Attacking Mahoraga has gotten Gojo to his 4th Black Flash in a single fight, one against Sukuna, a second against Agito, and a third and fourth against Mahoraga. Kento Nanami set the record for 4 back-to-back Black Flashes in the Night Parade of 100 Demons, which was only contested by Itadori Yuji. This puts Gojo right up there with Nanami and Yuji for having the most Black Flashes ever used in one fight. Moving the fight forward, Gojo wastes no time using his chance to power up his technique. One of the chants that Gojo uses is Paramita, which is a subtle reference by Gege Akutami about Gojo's status in the Jujutsu world. Paramita is a term from Buddhism that translates as perfection, and is generally associated with enlightened beings. With Gojo becoming the enlightened one all the way back in chapter 75, the chance for his powers working this way is very fitting. The moment Sukuna sees this, he's put on edge, bracing himself with Mahoraga. He notices a spark welling up with Gojo's cursed energy. That signifies he's about to use a big move. This explains how Mahito recognized Gojo's domain was coming so quickly in Shibuya before he even showed the hand sign. And with Sukuna being so adept at using cursed energy, him being able to recognize these things is no surprise. Even though Sukuna knows that Gojo's gonna use a big move, he doesn't know exactly what'll happen. Sukuna's first instinct is that Gojo's gonna use his reverse technique, Red, and have Mahoraga take the hit for him and adapt to the technique. Gojo's Red at point-blank range was already strong enough to rip apart Sukuna's face, let alone a stronger version empowered by Gojo's chants. But Sukuna's guess of what Gojo was going to do was completely wrong. Ever since he survived Unlimited Void, Sukuna has been completely dependent on Mahoraga to fight Gojo, even going as far as to avoid getting anywhere near him until Mahoraga attacks Gojo first. This highlights how far Gojo stands above Sukuna now that neither of them can use their domains. With both of them being nerfed, Gojo has a huge advantage over Sukuna due to his infinity, and how good of a fighter he's become over the years. Up until now, Gojo has always used Red to attack his opponents, but this time he's doing something different, taking his reverse technique Red and shooting it straight into the sky. This highlights Gojo's intelligence, because he's aware that the blue he fired at Agito is still in the area, so he can combine red with blue to make hollow purple. giving him a very creative way of executing his technique that very few people would be able to counter. As soon as Sukuna sees what's happening, he starts to panic, screaming out for Mahoraga to help him deal with Gojo's plan. Before Gojo prepared Unlimited Hollow, Sukuna mentioned that in his weakened state, taking another Hollow Purple from Gojo would be fatal, leaving him so desperate to survive that he has to call a Shikigami to protect him from Gojo's technique. Hollow Purple is Gojo's strongest brute force technique since it combines red and blue. It was already strong enough to rip straight through Toji and has only gotten stronger after a decade of more training. Unlimited Hollow is going to be enhanced by Gojo's chants that he used when bringing out red, making Unlimited Hollow one of the strongest versions of Hollow Purple ever seen in the series. Hearing Sukuna's cries, Mahoraga rushes towards Gojo's technique, with the only thing on his mind being to follow orders. Gojo wastes no time chasing after Mahoraga since he's aware of Sukuna's plan. Due to Mahoraga having adapted to blue, he should be able to erase the blue that Gojo has left after destroying Agito. Being one of the smartest sorcerers in the series, Gojo can think of this on a dime and not be caught off guard. Even though Gojo is quick enough to realize what Mahoraga's doing, Mahoraga is still far ahead of him. So Gojo closes the gap with his blue technique by using its attraction to bring him in front of Mahoraga. Having used blue on Sukuna several times, Gojo already knows that the Shikigami has adapted to his blue technique. This lets him use blue to bring himself forward freely, since he can close the distance between them without Mahoraga getting any benefit, due to it being immune. Using this, Gojo is able to punch Mahoraga to stop it from getting in the way of him using Unlimited Hollow. But Sukuna does everything he can to stop Gojo's technique by using Max Elephant's water in the style of piercing blood to boost the water's speed. Using the abilities of Shikigami without summoning them is a feat that Gojo claimed takes skill equal to his own, showing why the King of Curses was so strong in his time, due to his knowledge on getting the best out of his Jujutsu. Gojo closes in to attack Sukuna, but Max Elephant's water that Sukuna fired is racing towards Gojo's red. This gives Sukuna the confidence to start trash-talking Gojo, saying that he's too slow. With Sukuna's trash record of talking down to Gojo, this isn't a bright thing to do, like when he suffered brain damage right after calling Gojo painfully ordinary. And with Gojo being Gojo, he's more than ready to make Sukuna eat his words. Once he sees that Sukuna's piercing water is firing toward red, Gojo makes a quick decision, using his chance to empower blue even further. Seeing as blue has magnetic effects that Gojo spoke about in chapter 69, this was a very smart decision, since this redirects Sukuna's piercing water technique to go from targeting red to send it crashing toward his blue, which swallows the water whole. All this is made possible because of the many black flashes Gojo landed in this fight, as Gojo's noted as being aided by both his chants and his restored output that he got back thanks to landing 4 black flashes against Sukuna and his Shikigami, giving Gojo the edge since his blue is now stronger for 2 separate reasons. Even past Gojo's strategy, Gege Akutami has hidden several Buddhist references inside of Gojo's chants, with the 9 rows possibly being a reference to the 9 vehicles of Nyingma in Buddhist teachings. The 9 Nyingmas are said to act as a vehicle of the mind to bring someone closer to the goal of liberation and enlightenment. With both Gojo's red and purple having references to enlightenment, Gojo was destined to become the enlightened one the moment he was confirmed to have the 6 eyes in Limitless. More references are given about Gojo and where he stands through the rest of his chants, one of those chants being Kro and Shamyo. The latter is also known as Shamyo Nenbutsu, or a way of praying to the Buddha. With Gojo being the enlightened one throughout heaven and earth, it's possible that this chant could be a prayer that he's both putting out and answering, showing his status as the one that stands above all in the Jujutsu world. The last of Gojo's chants that seem to have significance is the final one that he uses. That chant is the gap between, within, and without. A gap between and within is also something known as a hollow point, which is a synonym for being without something in a certain context. Given that this is the case, the final chant for Gojo's Unlimited Hollow seems to be a direct reference to Hollow Purple itself. All these chants together serve one purpose: to make Gojo's Hollow Purple even stronger than normal. These are the same chants that Gojo used when he teamed up with Gakuganji and Utsuhime to boost his strength to 200%. Sukuna already said another Hollow Purple could be fatal, even if it isn't at the same 200% strength that it was before. All of this is spelling out trouble for Sukuna, and he knows it. Back with the other Jujutsu sorcerers, Yuta and the others are still watching the fight thanks to Mei's crows, where Yuta apologizes to Kusakabe, saying if a burden like him were in the fight, then Gojo would never be able to use Unlimited Hollow. This is a callback to when Yuta wanted to fight Mahoraga and Agito while Gojo was outnumbered. which all the other sorcerers were against doing, proving what Kusakabe said about Yuta getting in Gojo's fight being a bad idea. All this goes back to a recurring theme with Gojo that Kenjaku mentioned back in Shibuya, when he said that Gojo's at his best when he's alone. Anyone joining his fights will hold him back. Since his moves are so strong, it'll kill anyone else that gets in his way. This gives even more of a reason why Yuta, Kotsu, and the others were told to only join the fight if Gojo is so weak that they're stronger than he is. All this proves why Kenjaku went to the lengths he did to seal Gojo in Shibuya, teaching the disaster curses domain amplification, and surrounding Gojo with so many civilians that he wouldn't even use blue. Because if Gojo was able to use any of the techniques he used against Sukuna, the disaster curses would have been exercised way before his plan worked, proving that Jogo's fear of Gojo before Shibuya was legit, since he stood no chance even with other curses. Bracing himself to take down Mahoraga and Sukuna, Gojo gets ready to unleash Unlimited Hollow. Bringing his red and blue together, Unlimited Hollow explodes across Shinjuku. But you may have noticed that Gojo never claimed this was a maximum technique, so the question is still out on if he has one, because it would be odd if he didn't. Unlimited Hollow has the most range out of any of Gojo's techniques shown to date, taking up a massive part of Shinjuku when it was detonated. The requirement for being a special grade sorcerer, according to Kenjaku, is to be able to wipe out a country on your own. When you combine this with Gojo having infinite use of his curse energy, teleportation, unlimited void, his red, blue, and regular hollow purple, on top of no one being able to touch him, it's clear why he was chosen for the role. Unlimited Hollow is yet another reminder why Gojo is the strongest alive. As you can clearly see, he took out Mahoraga in a single use of the technique. When Gojo spoke about the matchup between Limitless and Six Eyes versus 10 Shadows, both fighters died in the end. What Chimera Shadow Garden can do at its full potential is still a mystery, but this right here may prove that Gojo might have been stronger than the last Six Eyes and Limitless user. Once the effect of Gojo's Unlimited Hollow was shown, the damage to Shinjuku was clear. Anything that was even touched by Gojo's Unlimited Hollow has been reduced to ash and rubble. It's a lot like the damage that Sukuna caused in Shibuya, when there was nothing left after a combination of Malevolent Shrine and his Fire Arrow technique, showing why each of them are the strongest sorcerers, since they can blow up part of a city on their own. Barely hanging on to his life, Sukuna slowly makes his way out of the destruction, bruised on his entire body, missing a hand, and bleeding from his leg. This is the worst shape Sukuna has ever been in at any point in time. Earlier in the fight, Sukuna claimed that another hollow purple would be fatal, so he was lucky to survive such a large-scale purple in the first place. Gojo is the definition of needing to have a few screws loose to be a Jujutsu sorcerer, as he was fully willing to blow himself up with his own technique to take on Sukuna, which is evident from the damage he took from his own attack, though he took less damage than Sukuna overall. All this plays into the major theme with Gojo's character that he spoke about with his students, where he tells Megumi Fushiguro that winning by dying and risking death to win are completely different things. Gojo has proven several times that he's willing to risk everything to win, by destroying his own brain and risking blowing himself up with his own technique, which is a major difference from Megumi trying to end himself and his opponents with Mahoraga early in the series, making Gojo someone who practices what he preaches, since he does things to defeat his opponents that none of his students ever would have considered. This should serve as an example to every other sorcerer watching the fight between Gojo and Sukuna, since Itadori Yuji and all the Tokyo and Kyoto sorcerers can see what Gojo is doing on the big screen, along with Megumi Fushiguro, who can watch from inside Sukuna, seeing Gojo's lessons in full effect. Since differences like this between Gojo and the others is another reason why he was able to climb as high as he did. And through taking big risks, he learned something new about cursed energy. When Unlimited Hollow exploded, it did more damage to Sukuna than it did to Gojo, which Gojo mentions is from him being attacked with his own cursed energy, a detail that was never mentioned anywhere else in the series. This benefits him thanks to the sparks of black blessing Gojo throughout the fight. Gojo's output of reverse curse technique was low against Agito and Mahoraga, which was fueled back by landing 4 black flashes across Sukuna and both of his Shikigami, giving him enough output to recover from the damage that Unlimited Hollow did to his body. Thanks to Gojo pushing himself as far as he did, Sukuna is now at his absolute lowest. Sukuna's healing has slowed, and with no Mahoraga, he won't be able to get out of any of Gojo's techniques, making his only option for damaging Gojo domain amplification. Agito also had the same healing ability as Round Deer, which Gojo mentioned could heal Sukuna and is no longer around. With Gojo having restored output and Sukuna being down to almost nothing, the advantage for Gojo was clear. The story is now building up to the end of the biggest fight Jujutsu Kaisen has seen. Gojo vs Sukuna was called the battle between the strongest in history and the strongest of today. Gojo has proven he's stronger than Sukuna by winning the domain clash, forcing him to use Mahoraga, and almost killing him with unlimited hollow. Through this fight, Gojo is undeniably stronger than the King of Curses and takes his seat as the strongest in history. While the title of the strongest has been claimed, the fight between the two sorcerers isn't over. Sukuna is still alive and has shown over time that he's not against being underhanded to reach his goals. Prime examples being killing Megami's sister to claim his body and ripping out Yuji's heart to keep him from taking control. Sukuna claimed that defeat is the same as death. So if there was ever a time to use Yorozu's gift against Gojo, there would be no better time than right before he dies. With the fight between Gojo and Sukuna coming to a close, there's only a few moves left that can be made on either side, using Yorozu's gift for Sukuna, and going after Kenjaku and Uruume for the other Jujutsu sorcerers. No matter who wins Gojo and Sukuna's fight, unless both of them die, the stakes go up dramatically for both sides. Now that Gojo has proven himself to be the strongest sorcerer, click the video on your screen to learn more about the strongest to ever live.